Howdy Earthlings! Today we are going to talk about a Cicoria threshing machine. This is an Italian small threshing machine for handling grains, beans, supposedly does things as small as quinoa and amaranth, and even will defoliate some small herbs and things like that. It will do anything as big as like lima beans. We did a video last year. We tested it with cowpeas, which are like black-eyed peas and brown crowders. Did very well on those. This year we have a truck full of wheat and some rye harvested by the BCS reaper binder, the 622 reaper binder that we will release a video on. Well, you'll see a video on Earth Tools on that shortly. Some of these were kind of, this grain was kind of cut green. It was very, it was kind of unripe. Most of the seed did end up maturing. I mean, after we harvested it in the sheaves that the reaper binder bundles it into, we stored it in a barn. Some of them got kind of bent, so they're going to be a little challenging to feed into this thing because they're not straight anymore, but we'll get them in there. And we're going to show you how the threshing machine will work to get this grain off the end of these bundles, the sheaves. So a little once over. Now the thresher we demoed last year was a gas-powered model, had a Kohler engine on it. Engine nestled down under here. This is an electric model. Now this particular electric model has not been modified for the US market. That is, the motor that's on it is still set up for 50 cycles or 50 hertz rather than 60 cycles. That means that since we're running it on 60 cycle electricity, it actually runs 20% faster than it's supposed to. It's a little bit of a challenge because the fan speed, which is fixed to the motor speed, is not variable. It's kind of running a little fast on the fan. So we're having to compensate for it by other methods. Now on the production models that will be coming into the US market that we're going to be selling, there will be a speed controller. Cicoria is coming up with this, and it's supposed to be available sometime in the fall of 2023. But the speed controller will correct this issue with both the number of cycles and give extra speed control for the motor, which will be very nice. Because that was one nice thing about the gas model. You could just change the speed of the gas engine very easily to get your fan speed what you wanted it. This thing is just one speed all the time on the motor. So, but the speed control on the motor will take care of that. So, a couple things I'll cover. Right now we've got our covers kind of open here. I've got my belt cover open on the other side. We did change the screen from what came in here originally. There's a screen on the bottom of this chamber, and that's the screen has to be the appropriate size for the type of material that you're using or that you're running through it. I will pop this open real quick here. There's two latches right here. I've got that one open. Pop these latches up and flip those, and then use a 13mm wrench to undo this little latch here. Just hold that back while you take hold of this and bring this up. Okay, so that is how you would change this screen right here. It just lifts right out of there. You can change it as needed. There's all kinds of different screens. There's one for lima beans there. It's huge. Well, that's actually two screens together. Comes with like 6 or 8 different screens for a variety of sizes. But this one, I just took a guess that this was the right size for wheat, and it's actually doing a good job. We ran a couple of sheaves through here earlier. Getting used to this thing again. All right, you just kind of center it up there. Bring the unit down. And put all the latches back in place. These latches are adjustable. You can see this piece that comes up, the shank is threaded. So if the latch feels like if it's pretty loose and it's not really latching down very well, you can always give it a twist to tighten it so that it has more tension. Yeah, that feels a little better. So, okay, that's nice. Now we'll walk over around the other side here. Here we've got our pulley assembly open because I just wanted to see how the torque converter worked. Basically, as you crank this crank in and out, it pushes the motor in or out, and it actually makes this pulley wider or narrower, like any true torque converter, which changes the ratio of how it drives the beater drum. So this, by cranking it out, it will, let's see if I can get this right in my head. So let's see. Well, actually, we'll turn it on for a second so you can see it. Just a moment. the pulley is actually, the belt is coming toward the top of the pulley, so that's making it turn faster. So cranking it in makes it turn slower. So that's about where we had it adjusted there. There we go. I'm going to shut it down. Okay, and I'm going to shut the belt cover because we don't really want to run it with the belt cover open. There is on the belt cover, there is a latch at the bottom, which is again moved by a 13mm wrench. And there's also, well, come to the top here too, because you've got to see this. Basically, this stud has to go through this right there, and then this great big knurled nut goes on the back side. It's a little bit awkward, but you hold it in place and just kind of spin it on there. I should be doing this without gloves on, but yeah, because if you do it with gloves on, that's what you're going to do. All right, gloves are off. There we go. Spin that on. Tighten it into place. All right. And then make sure our latch is latched at the bottom. Yeah, it's actually, there we go. Spring loads back in. One more thing. When you're ready to open this chamber up and change this sieve or screen, this door has to be opened first. When I opened it earlier, I already had this door open, but I forgot to mention that if you want to change the screen at some point to a different size, you do have to undo this top latch, turn the little 13mm nut at the bottom, and open this belt cover because this will not open. This will not open up to accept another screen until you do that. So we are now ready to thresh. And the threshing, it does its threshing here in the threshing chamber, but what happens down in here in these air passages, this is kind of the winnowing action. And it doesn't winnow at 100%. It's not going to be super clean grain, but it gets, you know, over 90% of the chaff out, probably close to 99% of the chaff. But this is the output, and I've got a bin located under it here to catch the grain. You can see the wheat that ended up in there, and you can see there's a little of the larger chaff in here. But it's getting most of the small chaff out. I actually ran this through there several times while we were doing adjustments on it. But you've got, out of the bottom of the threshing chamber here, you've got a passage that comes down through here. This is basically open on the bottom and it dumps right down into here. Well, what keeps all the material from going in here is the amount of air that's being sucked up this channel, because there's a great big fan on the other side of this thing straight through here, and that fan is sucking that direction. It is blowing out that way. So it is pulling air up this channel, and it's also pulling air through this screen right here. This is your kind of chaff catch repository here. Just a big drawer, and you can see down in it we've got a little bit of chaff. There's a few pieces of grain in there, but not much. So you can adjust the amount of air that gets sucked through this screen right here. This bulkhead moves up and down. By moving it up, I'm cutting off the airflow going in here. So this is one way to adjust airflow of this side versus this side. This side is always wide open. It has to be, because that's where the grain is going to drop by gravity. So you're basically, it's a balance between the weight of the grain moving down through this channel. It's a balance of the weight of that grain and the airflow moving up that channel. You can't control the airflow technically moving up except by adjusting the airflow on the other side. So you can adjust it by this baffle right here, as I just explained. You can also adjust it by a bulkhead on the far side near the fan. Watch the cord there, Sophie. Sophie, my daughter, is videoing this. Thank you, Sophie. There's a rope that hangs right down in here. And by pulling on one end of the rope, you'll close the baffle off. And pulling on the other end of the rope, it'll open it up. And actually, Sophie, you can take the camera around and kind of look right down through the plexiglass here. You can see that bulkhead, and you can see what it does. This is closing it off. Less light visible, less fan visible, and this is opening it up. So we figured we had to keep it about right there, about 2/3 closed, because the fan speed is so fast with this thing running at 60 cycles that we just can't have a lot of airflow through there. So a lot of the chaff is going to get just sucked straight out and blown out through the fan. Some of it's going to make it over this side and drop in the chaff bucket. A little bit of the chaff goes down in with the grain. The thing is, the machine has absolutely no way to tell whether an object is a piece of grain or a piece of grain that has the same air resistance as grain. So if a pretty good chunk of stalk goes down in there and it has the same rough mass ratio as a piece of grain, it's just going to drop in there. There's no way for the machine to tell. So, but it's doing a pretty good job. So as far as activating this thing, this is the on button right here. It's under this little clear cover. And then this is the off button. Once you've hit the off button, you actually have to rotate it to pop it back up again because it'll stay off. That is, once you do that, it's off until you twist that. So if it's down like that and I push the on button, nothing happens. I have to give this a twist, it pops up, and then when I push this, action. Okay, one more thing. This is an opening to eject the stuff out of the beater chamber. I've never had to use that. I suppose maybe you would use that if you get a big clog or something. And then this channel here, this big thing on top, would be to discharge that said plugged material not on top of the motor. It would actually dump it out here. So if you needed to eject a clog that's in there, you could open this thing up. Blah, it's going to throw the clog out here. Never had to do that because I've never overloaded it. So, but that thing, obviously, if you're changing the screen, that thing has to go up and held in place by the chain so it doesn't drag all over this other metal down here. Actually, there's some little rubber stoppers to hold this thing in place down here. Yeah, one's enough. That's right. That's all it needs. All right, so we're going to thresh a bit, and then we'll do some adjustments if necessary.
Pretty big shocks, or sheaves I should say. And some of these, like I say, they were stored crooked, so I'm actually breaking this one down and just taking it little bit. Normally this lever here on the side opens up the port to get stuff down into the beater chamber. But I can, since this is a stalk, I can just shove it through the door. I don't have to go over here and manually open it.
Most of the time I would try to hold on to the stalks of grain, but some of those bundles were just kind of messed up. There was some of the grain we harvested that was actually lodged, where the grain kind of falls into itself and it gets hung up. And we went ahead and cut it with the reaper binder, so that means that some of the heads are not at the same height as other heads in the same sheath. So you've got heads at the top and like heads halfway down and it's folded back on itself, so it's a little bit of a mess. So sometimes I just let the whole stalk go on in there. I'm curious to see what that did. We got a little more stalk in with the wheat because of that. There's just, going to be larger stalks. And you can take this grain and just run it back through the thing. You can dump it back through and it'll winnow out a lot of this stuff, a lot of the bigger stalks. So it's not, what you see in the finished product chamber is not always necessarily the end if you need to make adjustments. So we'll look in here. This is chaff. Not much grain at all. Very good ratio. So we've got the adjustment right. We made a couple adjustments before we started the video. At first it was getting about 10 or 20% of the grain back in here, but we had to cut the airspeed down with that bulkhead to keep it from doing it well. All right. I'm actually going to dump this grain back through there. See if it takes some of this out. Yep, took a lot of it out. Still needs a little cleaning, but not too bad. So we'll run some more through there.
down just a little bit.
All right. Yep. Yeah, with this much stock in there, it's probably going to be a good idea to run this through there again, but it's done the work. It's got definitely all the holes are out of it. It's definitely blowing all the holes out through the fan injection. All we're getting in here is some pieces of stock. because the stalk is dense enough that it's hard to tell it from grain as far as the fan is concerned. But it's de-hulling it and blowing the hulls out, so that's not a problem. Some of the hulls are probably ending up over here, but a lot of that is stalk. There's some hull there, but yep, doing pretty well. All right. Well, you probably are sick of me doing this, so we're going to call it a wrap. Thanks for watching, and give us a call about the Cicoria Threshers and BCS 622 Reaper Binders, your small-scale hay production solution. Thanks.